All right, it's time for Real Raw Recovery. I'm Joe Tilley from Newcastle, Ontario, Canada.
Tyler Tilley, Bangkok.
Tyler Tilley, Bangkok. Okay, Tyler Tilley, Bangkok. Here's today's reading.
Moment of silence.
Oh, moment of silence. Okay. Serenity We Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, here's today's reading, so pay attention, please. I don't want to have to read this twice.
All right.
A two-way street. If we ask, God will certainly forgive our derelictions. But in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation. That's from 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 65. When I prayed, I used to omit a lot of things for which I needed to be forgiven. I thought that if I didn't mention these things to God, he would never know about them. I did not know that if I had just forgiven myself for some of my past deeds, God would forgive me also. I was also taught to prepare for the journey through life, never realizing until I came to AA, when I honestly became willing to be taught forgiveness and forgiving, that life itself is the journey. The journey of life is a very happy one, as long as I am willing to accept change and responsibility. So when I read that earlier this morning, thing that popped into my head right away was that, yeah, you know what? The God of my understanding would be, it's probably not the God of everybody's understanding, but the God of my understanding, you know, I wouldn't be omitting things from my prayer that I thought, you know, if I didn't mention these gods, he wouldn't know about them, because the God that of my understanding is a God within that knows everything about me anyway.
Right.
So that doesn't resonate with me. That was the first thought, is that I remember hearing not that long ago, somebody was saying that a God that they could define, sort of easily define, was not the kind of God that was big enough for me to believe in and trust and to turn my will and life over to. So, and that's, I believe that. See, the God of my understanding is would be so hard to define and undefinable, really, that I wouldn't be able to pigeonhole God into that box. And certainly I wouldn't think that, oh, if I don't mention this thing in my prayer here, then God won't know about it. Because I believe that everything that I know, that the God of my understanding knows as well. You know, it's a God within, so the God within is certainly knows everything that I know. And I'm assuming a lot more. So that is that. And that was that's my thought. The thought that came to mind from that reading when I first read this morning.
I read that you were listening to Chris Raymer.
Yes.
What do you think about him?
I like him.
Have you heard him before?
Yes, I have. Yeah, no, I like him. I've seen him before actually speak. It's interesting because I was at a Fellowship of the Spirit conference in New York like 15 years ago.
Right.
And Chris S., who is one of the facilitators this weekend, was also there facilitating that weekend. And he told his story, and Chris Raymer was there, and so is Mark Houston. So it's quite an interesting, quite a good weekend. It was really to me at that time,
Yeah.
I was really, I heard a lot of stuff that I hadn't heard before.
Right.
And I was blown away. Right
Right.
now, and this time coming around, hearing, Chris and then hearing Chris Reimer again on the way home. Yeah. So like I'm on side with a lot of what they have to say. So, yeah, I'm there, and I was there too 15 years ago when I first heard Chris and Mark and Peter, because Chris S did it with Peter M, who's also, I believe, from New York or New Jersey. And yeah, they opened my eyes, like that this idea that if somebody can just come around and just not drink and go to meetings, and maybe they're not a real alcoholic, because, and of course that always pisses people off.
Right.
But it's true, because if I could just not drink and go to meetings and that's all I have to do, that's not me. I had to do a lot more work than that in order to come to a place of where I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Right.
That's not good enough for me, right? That's just not good enough for me. And I, if it's good enough for you, well, I mean, I guess only you can ultimately really decide if you're an alcoholic or not. But, if you can just not drink and go to meetings and you're fine, well, that's just not my story. That's just not who I am, because I had a lot of stuff going on with me. As they talk about, like, drinking was a solution. Drinking wasn't the problem. Drinking was the solution, because when I drank, I felt okay in my own skin for those brief periods of time. It's like I shared last night. If I could have just got to that place where I drank to a point where I felt good, I felt, the fear was gone. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I could dance and talk to girls and yada, yada, yada. If I could just get there and stay there and not drink anymore, and not have to drink anymore, then I would have been fine. It would have been great. I would never have had a need to come to AA. The problem is I always crossed that line. I always had too much, and I always went overboard, and then I felt like crap, and then I would wake up and I'd be depressed, and so putting away the alcohol was just not the solution, because when I put away the alcohol, then that's when I had the depression would sink in, and that's when I would feel crappy and feel like low and feel like I was worthless and all the other stuff. So then I drank again, and all those negative feelings go away for a short period of time, and then I wake up again and they're all back again. So, and then of course, drinking takes me down that place, because I have that allergy. I want more, and I won't stop until I either run out or pass out. And then I wake up and do it all over again, and that's that cycle, that endless cycle of the allergy, the obsession of the mind, which causes me to drink again. The allergy kicks in, then the obsession of the mind, and then I quit, and then the obsession of the mind kicks in, and I start again, and on and on and on it goes. So that's what I have, that spiritual malady, and that's why I need a lot more than just don't drink and go to meetings. And if you look at what in the beginning, like this, our founders, that's what they all did. They all did the work, and because they all did the work, they all did the recovery work, the step work. Back then, it was, of course, just the 6 tenets of the Oxford group, but they all did that work. They all did the moral inventory. They all did the 8th and 9th, getting right with the rest of the world. They all did that. All of the people in the beginning. And then somewhere along the line, it became just don't drink and go to meetings. And there's like a large segment of recovery, which is not really recovery, and think that way. So that was when I think when the first time that I went to the Fellowship of the Spirit, that's what kind of they opened my mind and eyes to that type of thing, and that's yes, that's right, because I had been doing the work since basically I came around, because that's the guidance I received, and and but I realize today that there's a lot of people who say stupid things like do a step a year or wait till you're around for a while before you start going through the steps, and if you open the book and the book, it says this is the basic text for our recovery, and if this is the basic text, we should study it. And if you study the basic text, it doesn't say anything about waiting ever. There's not one word in there about wait. There's a lot of times it'll say immediately, now. That's what we get when we read it, this basic text. So when I hear people say things like, take it easy, man, slow it down. You don't have to do a fourth right away. Well, read the book, because it doesn't say that anywhere inside the book. So there you go. And and what I do today is I like to take people through Back to Basics, because Back to Basics is a solution-based meeting, and we get through the steps quickly. 4 weeks, boom, away you go. You're in a position now where you can actually carry the message, because that's the way they were. That's where the guys were in the beginning. If everybody had waited until they were in a good place to start working on the steps, well, AA never would have got off the ground. We'd all be dying. People who are real alcoholics would be dying because we would have no solution. So it's like by getting the solution, by working the steps and finding recovery, I get to be in a place where I can live in my own skin. I'm happy. And the reason for drinking no longer exists. So if I can get to that point by working this program, why would I want to wait to work the program? Like, how much sense does that make? So anyway, that's my rant of the day.
Your rant is as soft as my pubic hair.
Oh yeah, but you got wiry pubic hair. So.
No, I don't, sir. It's conditioned.
Yeah, no, so. Yeah, and that's my. Well, it is a rant, right?
I thought
it may be a soft rant, but it's a rant.
Yeah. What do you think of his personality and his opinion?
You're talking about Chris Raymer?
Yeah.
Well, he's good. I mean, I like it because he to me, in my belief, he tells it like he sees it,
right?
And he tells it like it is. So I like that. In some ways, I envy that because I think I'm much more careful of being politically correct. I don't like I won't rub people the wrong way intentionally. Right. Whereas he doesn't. I don't think he cares about doing that. So right. Yeah. So that part of it is I am somewhat envious of that. But at the same time, there's a reason that I don't rub people the wrong way, and I don't say things that some people say that I know is going to, get some attention and get some pushback.
Right.
So, there's things that I might not say that he says, but right. Which is fine. If we were all the same, what a boring world this would be.
Yeah, I followed him a couple of years back quite closely.
Yeah.
Listen to everything he's ever said that's out in the ether.
Yeah. And
I definitely have some things I want to share about that, because I do believe he was a trailblazer. I know that he got it from his sponsor, the method, but his delivery was, when I heard that, it was like uncanny.
Mhm.
It was really what after I kind of deduced what I got from it, was his passion. And I categorize him in a category where, if you do follow, like if you actually like go a bit chronological with his speaking, he gets a lot softer as well.
Mhm.
He gets
Okay.
he gets a lot more like, I remember him saying like, you know what, I don't care how you work the steps, just do them. Like before, he would be regimented of how to do, like he goes, and then like near the end, like the last few tapes that they have of him out there, he's much more politically correct, as you mentioned. He's much more
Mhm.
um, softer. He still gets into these rants that are, but he'll question it mid rant sometimes, and he'll maybe backpedal a little bit.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
if I took the core of him, what I get out of him is, I guess, two things: passion. His passion, you can just feel it, right? You can feel it even through an audio recording.
Mhm.
And then the other element I get from him is not about, it's about standing for something, but what I've learned, and this kind of grows outside of the fellowship in a sense, is like, what I learned is I value when someone is all in. I value
Mhm.
when someone, like if you're playing poker, and you throw out the phrase "I'm all in," and when you throw
Right.
that phrase, and it's kind of like, because I just know I can read people in a way that's interesting. So it's like you can tell when somebody's like wishy-washy or flaky, and 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 I just didn't find him flaky. Whereas I've met a lot of people, program and not, that are a little bit flaky. So when someone stands up and would say like, that is wrong, what you're doing is wrong, that's not how it works. Like for someone to state that fact, and then go all in behind it. Like I've caught myself like where I would say something like that's wrong, and then maybe I don't put all my chips behind what I'm saying. So like I learned a lot from that angle, like where it's like, okay, if I'm gonna like, my words are very powerful, and what, like, I really want to think them through so that when I state something, I'm all in. And it doesn't mean I can't be wrong, but it's just like to go all in behind what I'm saying, and to be willing to, if this is the truth, well then there's going to be some people that are wrong. And that's why I'm saying it doesn't, I'm not necessarily directing this at the fellowship. But what I just found with him is like he's indicating that there's things that are wrong. And that those are very like specific words that I find powerful people use. And again, there could be debate whether that's always the best method for delivery. Maybe, maybe not. But I just notice people who are powerful in society or have like a backbone that's or charisma, are willing to indicate to others that they are wrong. And so then I'm going to go backwards even to last week. I never threw my 2 cents in because I didn't feel like it was necessary. I thought your answer was actually really, like, again, politically correct and well thought out, but just, it was just, um, I guess I didn't, at the time, didn't need my input. But remember, I asked you about what do you think about people using cell phones in the meeting?
Yeah.
You gave me an answer that was, in some ways, really bland, but in some ways, really, yeah, like it's probably the purest answer you're going to get. But then I just thought, okay, what would I say? What would Chris Raymer say? Then let's take the other angle. I said, if you use your phone in a meeting, you're a fucking clown. Period. Why would you? There's no other, there's no, you can play the softball or you can play it, period. No, at the end of the day, you can get, if you're a doctor, then what would happen is you'll get an emergency call and you take the call outside of the meeting. You'll get you'll get a buzzing in your pocket, then you know to leave the room and go answer that phone call. You're expecting a call from your dying mother. You leave it on vibrate, you leave the room when it rings. But if you're on your phone, you're a fucking bonehead. Period. That's my opinion. That's just, it's that clear. There's no, and I don't care what circumstances there are or what, it's just that's where I would throw out, that's the truth from me. That is what I see as the truth. There's no excuse.
There's
no excuse.
And I think the only way I would have a problem with that is if I were somebody who regularly goes on their cell phone during meetings. And I would sort of justify that by saying, no, I'm not a bonehead. I'm not an idiot. I just feel like going on there sometimes. It seems important at the time. Whatever. So I agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
But that's when you go that's fine, but you're wrong. You are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's where it's for as I'm getting older, it's really important where to draw lines and where, and again, I guess why I didn't throw my input last weekend, because I guess I really thought it's not my battle. It's not something I'm going to invest in and make a message, but it just kind of came back around when I was thinking about Chris Raymer and what would he say about people using their cell phones? He wouldn't give an answer well, yeah, I guess there's times where I can understand why, but versus you're a fucking clown. Get off your phone. Right. Yeah. And I appreciate that demeanor. And like I said before, though, that's not always the best approach. Because I also, like I said, your answer your answer last week made my answer seem maybe perhaps too aggressive. So perhaps if I call your answer bland, you could call my answer a little obtuse or extreme, relax. So you know what I mean? And so there's ways to look at everything. But I also just, it's the passion, and it's willing to put all your chips into something. And
it's a commitment. It's a commitment.
I know,
right? You're committing
to your words.
When you're all in, your commitment. You're committing. When you take an opinion on something, and your opinion, you believe you're right, and you stress that opinion in a forceful manner, then you're committed to your opinion. But at the same time, is it possible? I have to understand that I may have an opinion on something, and I'm committed to that opinion, and I believe I'm right, and so I'll stress that opinion. For example, I believe that if you want to recover, you do the work, and you will recover. And that's my opinion. I'm not. Somebody's going to tell me, if somebody tells me, no, Joe, come around, just come to meetings for a while and just take your time and get in the steps, maybe do a step a year or some ridiculous stupid thing then I'm not sorry, but I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to accept that opinion. I'm going to be pretty forceful about my opinion that that's not the way to recovery. And if you want to get well, if you're going to tell some people, you're going to tell somebody like me to do that, you're going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're telling people who's an alcoholic of my type that has to do this work in order to recover, in order to get to that place where I feel comfortable in my own skin and I no longer have to drink so that I can live, then, if you're going to tell somebody like me, just don't drink and go to meetings, you're going to kill me, because I won't be able to do that. I'll either have to go drinking or blow my head off, because I can't live in this head without finding a spiritual solution. So that's what I'm pretty committed to that, and that's how I committed to that opinion. And I don't think anybody's ever going to tell me a story that's going to change my mind.
Right.
So I do have that. So I'm committed in that way. And I always think to myself, like, why not jump into this thing with both feet? Like, why not, do that whole deal? And what have I got to lose? My old way of living didn't work. I mean, there's a million points of evidence that verifies the fact that my old way of living didn't work. So why not try a new way of living and be open-minded enough to try this new way of living? And what have I got to lose? I can always go back to being a drunk and having that hopelessness and having that shitty life. I can always go back to that. But why not try something new? And why not jump in with both feet? And why not commit to something in my life for a change? Commit to my recovery. Just try it, I haven't been very good at committing to anything, but now I can try committing to recovery and see where that goes. And what have I got to lose?
I like touching on committing to like a step further and like analyze.
Committing to life. You like committing to life after recovery.
Yeah, no, but like it's an investment, right? Like it's at the end of the day, this whole deal is an investment for me. It's my great investment.
Right.
And the meaning of my life. And it's really easy to put in perspective now. Like, I wouldn't be able to be on this journey I am under the influence, whether it's jails, institutions, or death. Like, I wouldn't be able to be the man I am today. And the man I am today outweighs the alternative. And so I like the investment for me to live another day sober and free, and then with myself, because I've grown into my skin and I've grown into myself quite in depth, like extremely. And that's what it was all about. It was about like being on this planet in my own skin for however many years. That's what I got. And so I was able, and I was gifted with the realization that I didn't want to go down this path because life is too short. And what I can do with my brain and my life is spectacular. And if I was always constantly fighting and battling with mood altering substances, it would prohibit me, and my stock would not be nearly as valuable as it is. The investment would have been a bust. And you can fill in.
Yeah, being an alcoholic or an addict is a full-time job.
Right, and so like
it's an all-consuming, all-encompassing.
What replaced
full-time job?
What's the most important? The most important question is, what is that replaced with? And that's the journey. That's the marathon, and that's like monitoring the stock or monitoring your inventory to see where you're at and where you're going and who you are, and how and investing in my words and putting and going all in with myself in my decisions and my journey and my it's just I need all hands on deck. I need all of my brain, all my functions, all my all my cylinders firing.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like I can really clearly see, because it's kind of like I really believe I kind of had two lives.
Right.
I could see who I was when 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 I was battling with addiction, and then I can see
Mm-hmm.
who I was. It's almost like it's kind of, because I really believe there's a period where you it's almost like purgatory, where you have to kind of go through a huge hurdle where you don't really know who you are, and now you're taking on a new role of being sober while you're at it, or being sober then trying to figure out who you are, and then finding out who you are and then doing something with that information, and then leaving,
Yeah.
and then living a fulfilling life, and it's like, and a meaningful life, because now you know who you are, and where, like, what you're aiming for, and what you're going to invest your time and energy into, and how is that paying off, and where does that pay off, and evaluating that information. And so it's just so important to me. My message is like, you focus so hard on that first 30 days, that first year, and then you're just left with like this shell of yourself. And then it's like, okay, I'm sober. I got some interesting people in my life. Okay, I have a design for living. I'm trying to follow to the best ability, but I have no fucking clue who I am. I'm just a guy who used to drink a lot. Okay, well, now the journey begins, because like it's just, it all often goes kind of like if you look at the, like, one day at a time is really important, but it's also like, if you're committed, if your chips are all in, it's not really one day at a time. Like, this is a mission now. And if that mission's not rewarding and valuable and exciting and happy, joyous, and free, then like something's not right. Something
Yeah.
needs to be adjusted.
Well, that's right. Because I look at it like, I think purgatory is a good word, because it's almost like, I think when I'm in addiction, I'm in that purgatory. It's like I'm walking on hot coals and trying to dance around these hot coals, and walking and dancing on hot coals, and my addiction, I'm throwing like buckets of water down, as I'm, in my addiction, I'm looking for things like, drinking, gambling, whatever. I'm throwing that's like a bucket of water or a splash of water that I'm throwing down on these hot coals, that allows me to dance for another step, and I keep, my addiction, whatever I'm chasing, whatever dragon it is I'm chasing, I'm throwing that splash of water down on the hot coal. It gives me some kind of relief for a moment, but then the freaking coal's hot again. I'm constantly splashing this stuff down and splashing this stuff down and and I'm all consumed with my addiction, and that's all that matters in my life. It's just, is feeding that addiction. And so now all of a sudden, I get into recovery now, and I stop chasing that. I stop having to walk on those hot coals and throwing stuff down. Now suddenly I'm just not. I don't have to move. It's like I have a pair of shoes on that is giving me a cushion between the hot coals and myself, and I just stand there and sort of look around and see what I'm doing, and see that there's other options. And now I start. Now I basically, there's a construction process now, and I can build a house over these hot coals, and then I can build a city over these hot coals. And then all this stuff keeps me permanently separated from these hot coals, as long as I keep doing this work, and I keep building this city, and I keep, building that recovery. It starts off as something small, starts off as a little shack, a little raft, then becomes a little shack, then becomes a house, then becomes like a few houses, a city, like building this whole entire community that I now share with other people who are doing the same thing. And we're all, separated from these hot coals, so we don't have to deal with that stuff anymore, as long as we continue to work on building this safety structure. So that's kind of, I want to continue to build this, and there's a lot of wonderful things that can happen. Like, we can build some incredible, wonderful things with our, with the ingenuity and the time that we have now, that we don't have to be all consumed with just splashing that little water down to keep my foot from burning off. Because like I said, like that disease that disease is all consuming. My addiction, all consuming. And now I can have a life, any kind of life that I want, right? So, like, there's absolutely no limit. And as you pointed out, you find yourself, find out who you are. And then when you find out who you are, you build on that. And that's, inspiring when we see people who build on that and become who they really want to be. Become who they're meant to be.
So I have two things, because I know that we'll wrap it up, but I have two things I want to touch on.
Yep.
I kind of look at it like this. So I imagine, so you're at hot coal analogy, right? Mm-hmm. Perhaps this is a little controversial, and I'm just thinking about it out loud now, so maybe it's not. I don't know yet. But I look at specifically the first few years in a 12-step program. Yep. As like being in the ocean and finding like a dinghy. And there's people on the dinghy, and they help you on the dinghy and take you out of the rocky ocean. Okay. Yep. And you're on the dinghy with these other people that have saved you from drowning. Right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Right. And you're on the dinghy, and you start building relationships and friendships with these people that you just happen to meet, that happen to save you on the dinghy. And they have a platform that keeps you from drowning. The dinghy keeps you, keeps stable. And then you're on the water now in the dinghy, and you start bringing other people out from the water. Mm-hmm. Right? And bringing them on the dinghy. And the reason I used the word purgatory earlier wasn't when I was in addiction. It was when I was on the dinghy that I was in purgatory, because I'm just saved from drowning. I'm on a boat with people I don't know, but that have helped me, and some I've made connections with, some I haven't, and we've got to save some other people from drowning as well. Mm-hmm. But I'm still living on a fucking dinghy. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live on a dinghy. Mm-hmm. So let's get to land, people. I don't even want to go on a cruise ship. I want to find land. Let me get on the land and really like figure out what the fuck is this with, like, I don't know how I got out into the ocean in the first place, but I did. And I'm grateful I got saved. And I'm no longer drowning. And now I want to find land. And I see land through my little telescope and I go, land ho! And we get to land and I made some great relationships. And once you hit land and you've had some time to think about and reflect of where I came from, now it's like, where do I want to go now that I'm actually like in a totally different universe? I'm not living on the dinghy anymore. I got a whole world to discover. And it's kind of like some of those people from the dinghy I like to connect with, but there's like, there is like, now I have tools to survive, especially through in many cases hell. And now it's like, now it's time to figure out the meaning of my life.
Right. But if I do that, and I know if while I'm doing that, I better be pulling people back into the dinghy. I better continue pulling people into that dinghy.
I think that's one way to do. Like, so that would mean you go back out in the ocean in a dinghy.
Well, I mean, hey, listen, I can spend my mornings pulling people into the dinghy, and my afternoons wandering around the city looking for opportunities to enjoy the city.
That sounds balanced. I think that what's going to happen is what you can do with your sober brain that all your chips are invested in you without any sort of like, well, there's going to be sidetracking and there's going to be like, I do believe in the element of having a malady where my brain perhaps doesn't function like typical people. So yeah, I guess maybe you got to go in the dinghy sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just like, what's most important for me about the whole fellowship is what you do with your gift, what you do with your second chance, what you do with your investment in you, because that's kind of what the whole deal is.
Well, you know what? Yeah, because I mean, if you're listening to somebody's story and they're talking about what it was like, what happened, what's like today, you want to be inspired by that, by what's what they're like today, right? You want to be inspired by that, so that's important to be inspirational. So I agree with that part of it for sure. But I mean, again, you can't be in that good place unless you get back in that dinghy, pull some people out of there. Can't stay in a good place. You can't just like, okay, I pulled 55 people out of the dinghy and that's it I'm good for my life.
But maybe there's ways to like indicate, maybe to shine light, like being a lighthouse for the dinghy to know where the land is. Well,
yeah, I mean, sure. But I mean, as long as it's related to helping others, yeah, whatever that is. Sure.
But I think people need to see that there's land after the dinghy.
Right. Because that gives them hope that someday they can do that. And that's why I'm talking about that as inspiration. Inspiration is important. But I know for me, if I can't enjoy the land unless I keep going back to the dinghy. So I think I got to spend my mornings or my nights in helping people get into the dinghy, and then I can enjoy my days in the city.
Yeah, you're a what do they call them? What are the people that are in the sea? Seaman?
Yeah, that's what they call them.
You're a big seaman.
I'm a seaman.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I like to be a lighthouse.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, ready to wrap it up?
Yep.
Okay. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, wisdom to know the difference.
Such a